Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Frank's World TV. This time I did check the audio before I started streaming, and I did a tech check, which is always good advice. So you're probably wondering what the heck is the deal with this title. All right, so let me fill you all into some background. If you follow me on Facebook, if you're watching on Facebook, hello. I'm actually streaming to my pages as well as my personal profile. Um, Let me give you the background of the situation. In April, a friend of ours, had purchased a set of refrigerators from us. So yes, we had two. Originally, we had two in the kitchen, but as my wife is want to do, she wanted to change things up in the kitchen in preparation for a much larger remodel. So we ended up replacing the two fridges, which she did not like, with one. So these things were floating around a garage because I honestly was trying to keep them, but as I like having two fridges, that's my thing. And if you're wondering who I am, didn't do that. All right, here you go. You can catch me at the following URLs. Um, on the socials, I'm Frank Diggs Data, and on the interwebs, I am at franksworld.com. All right, so as well as datadriven.tv and impactquantum.com. All right, so as the story progresses, we ended up, uh, one of my wife's longtime friends, like she's known her since like the 90s, since the .com era, had said, hey, we could really use a fridge because members of our family have food allergies and we'd like to keep things completely separate if we could. Um, so what ended up happening was we said, okay, you can have them both and just, $500, right? This was April. April. Keep that little pin, put a pin in that one and that date there. So what ended up happening was this lady kind of would not come by the house anymore. We'd cancel on us at the last minute. And then when my wife had basically said, hey, um, when are you going to pay us? Right. And kind of in a more serious way, because in the middle of all this, she had injected a lot of opinions on how we should be living our lives, raising our kids, blah, 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 blah. So I think it kind of got a little heated. I wasn't there. And basically said, hey, it's December. You still haven't paid us for these fridges, like not a dime. And that is when this lady went just bonkers on my wife, like really lit into her. Came up with all sorts of conspiracy theories about her, me, everything, her family, my family. Really got personal, like really nasty. And that's kind of where I draw the line. You want to steal $500 from me? I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, it's one thing. But to insult my wife and me in the process, particularly my wife, I'm a big boy, right? Um, I grew up in I grew up in Jersey, so I can handle it. So in the middle of all this, she basically says, "Don't contact us again," and basically, and told us to get help. Which I'm like, help for what? Certainly help for not being so trusting. So that really, I don't know, it just really set me off. So if you've been following me if you're a friend of mine on Facebook, you've seen all the memes and you kind of know the story because this is the second video I've done on the topic. I think they were thinking that they could get away with this, but no, don't get mad, make memes. So because we live in the age of the internet and the wonderful thing called AI, I took to uh, AI and basically wanted to. This lady, she's got a lot of mental health issues. That's really at the core of it, right? It's not really about the money. I want an apology. Money would be nice, but I also think she needs to get serious professional help because she's spending a lot of money on online games. Um, I guess to pacify herself. There's a lot of things going on there, right? I'm not going to make this a personal attack, even though she did on me. Though I suppose if you look at my prompt there. So I've just been using AI to post these pictures and drop hints at who this person actually is. And a lot of mutual friends, mutual acquaintances have kind of picked up on exactly who this person is. So one of the questions I get a lot is like, hey, how are you generating all these images? And it's AI, right? But what's really impressive about this is how good the typography has gotten in the AI. Now, try not to make this a because this is streaming on multiple platforms. I'm trying to keep this professional, but I did start off with a prompt, and that basically describing a crazed middle-aged woman with pink hair stealing fridges. And this is the first image that came up. Okay. So then I got thinking, like, now in the style of a 1980s heavy metal album cover, right? Got pretty good. But where things are now in the style of a 90s hip hop album, now in the 70s classic rock album, and Prodigy was on the radio, and I'm like, now in the style of a Prodigy album. And because I didn't want to anger the censorship copyright gods, I'd say of an early 2000s new metal band, which I know that's technically not what Prodigy is, but I think the result speaks for itself. Now I was thinking like a pop boy band type vibe, and go on and on. Album rock cover, ZZ Top. You could tell what was on my playlist by that, right? Pitbull, right? And going on and on and on and on. I was thinking of a comic book villain. This is what it produced. The AI has no chill, as the kids would say, and it gets, progressive savage. But and for those of you wondering, like, what's the deal with the dragon, the purple dragon? It's not Spiro. It's Figment, which is a Disney character from a now defunct ride in Epcot. And this happens to be this individual's favorite Disney character. And if you go to her Facebook profile, he's plastered all over it. This, and I think one of the characters from Inside Out 2. The imaginary friend guy, Bing Boom, Bing Bap, Bam, Boom Bap, Bingo, whatever. Saw the movie, didn't memorize the characters. So then I started getting like creative about it. Like, well, I think this was add a little purple that looks like Figment from Epcot to the scene. It did that. And what I was like, well, let's do Metallica cover, right? And this is where we go from, hey, that's interesting, to like, hey, this is a struggle or a conflict in Frank's personal life, to, hey, wait a minute now. That's actually pretty good. More along the text, because typography and AI, you can always spot it right away, right? But that's actually pretty good. It got the Metallica logo pretty spot on, right? I know it's not exactly the same, but the fact the E's look like E's, the M and the A look reasonable. It doesn't look like it's AI generated. So that's when I really realized. Now we are seeing some kind of like, interesting artifacts here in the typography. But you'll see that it got kind of the typography, the logo, the font pretty well. I mean, it did botch the D, but I'm going to give it points for that, because the last time I did this, so Fridge Busters, it got pretty good. Now, this is not a treatise on how copyright law will work in the generative AI age, or how these models are trained, because that is well above. I don't have a legal degree, but what's interesting, I want to point something here. I said, okay, now for a movie based on Star Wars called Fridge Wars. It declined to do that, and it said, I'm unable to generate this because it involves content that conflicts with certain content policies. Now, I find this very interesting, because obviously there are other copyrighted works that this pulled from in previous ones. Looking at you, the Metallica logo. And they do have a history of being very litigious. So that's interesting. So I just said, okay, well, instead of calling it Star Wars, I can kind of skirt around it, at least for now, by saying, I want a sci-fi epic called Fridge Wars. Put it in a comment below what sort of meme you would like to see. So pretty good. Then the Big Lebowski. Now, we did see that it did start, some of the things, right? It spelled fridge wrong and things like that. But overall, I've been, for the most part, this was a French Connection called the Fridge Connection. Overall, I would say that the typography has been handled very well. By the way, oh, here we go. What is this? 3D movie of a lady trying. So this is funny. So a lot of these are actually out and about and running errands, and I'll just talk into the ChatGPT app. So show a 3D movie of a lady trying to train the purple dragon to steal crickets. I actually said bridges, but the voice to text got that wrong. But you'll see it actually did that. And interestingly note, again, the typography is also well done. And I said, no, steal fridges, because this is what I was trying to get to, how to train your dragon to steal fridges. In case you didn't know, Figment is a dragon. And there you go. It did start messing up the typography here. Saturday Night Fever, Saturday Night Fridge. You'll see, again, typography is not perfect. DJ at a club. What is this? Steal fridges and burn bridges. All right, so that's what it came up with. These are now some advice from other people I started taking, right? So I do take feedback. This is from a longtime podcast listener, Bob. And the idea for this stream actually came from Tobin. Shout out to you, Tobin, because he calls this spite posting. And he says I should do an article or a post or a stream about spite posting with generative AI. Not encouraging you kids at home to do this. This is just strictly for demonstration purposes only. Although that having been said, there is now a Facebook page called Fridge Steph Memes. I got to come up with a better name, but that's what I did. So he came up with Bridge over the River Kwai, Fridge over the River Kwai. I was thinking of the Metallica album. Who was it? There was some album, In God We Trust, or the phrase In God We Trust, right? In Fridge We Trust. And this is what it came up with. Now, a lot of people who are also Figment fans have reached out and said Figment wouldn't do such a thing. And I was like, you're right. So I said, now with the Figment, the drag, because I don't want to anger the copyright protection system, being disappointed at the lady for stealing fridges. Saw a little YouTube video about the life and death of Abraham Lincoln. And I thought, well, what about a historical figure? And that's what it came up with. Oddly enough, Abraham Lincoln. At the Touchables or the Unpayables, didn't really do a good job here. But we do have this here. The we'll continue here. 3D superhero movie. I think it was The Incredibles. Yeah, The Incredibles. Couldn't do it because it with that. And I said, well, how would I describe it as a 3D superhero movie with the aesthetics of retro futurism, which is a dollar store description of The Incredibles. And that's what it came up with. Okay, now that did get a little personal, but I'll move past that. This was talking about what a tabloid article would look like, and this is where, if you really look at it, this is where the it did nail the layout of what these typical classical kind of like the Inquirer magazines would look like, but the typography did start to break down here, so you'll see that. So it can't do everything yet, but there's a couple of logos here that it got right. This is the Raiders of the Lost Fridge. I was hoping it would do like, you know, the Indiana Jones style poster. Fridgenheimer was another one. All your base are belong to us. It actually got that one, which I thought was pretty interesting. This may be the most accurate portrayal of the individual. You know who you are. And many people know who you are. The reason why I'm doing this largely on Facebook is because this individual, because of just trolls Facebook all the time. Now, I know she has me blocked. She has my wife blocked. And she has a couple of other people blocked too. But these are not impossible things to kind of get around. So she's probably stalking the Facebook profile. That's why these things are all marked public. Of a James Bond film, right? See, I triggered the system. It's like, well, what about a style, classic, iconic 1960s era spy film? I did it. Again, the I and the D and the G. 300, though, I mean, this nailed it 100%. Let me know in the comments if you think, what do you think of that, right? It turned Figment into a very mythological style dragon. But in terms of the aesthetic, I mean, it nailed it. Um, I know what fridge you stole last summer, which I don't think I've shared this on Facebook yet, but don't worry, it will be there. Um, but again, it got that. You'll notice I didn't always ask for typography because I know that typography in this is not exactly reliable, but it did it. And it did a really good job of it too, if I may add. And even got fridge right? So the ID, G, and E seem to be a trouble for the system. Get a He-Man version, but again, they must have legal agreements with certain than the other, or the list to be that way. They've not been very proactive, it seems. Just conjecture from an engineer on looking on the outside in. Well, okay, what about a children's cartoon from the 70s? The Adventures of Fridge and Dragon. In the style of a Depeche Mode album cover, again, back to the playlist. I don't know. It's pretty sparse, pretty consistent aesthetic. Link to the Joe Rogan interview with Rick Wan. It's a very good interview, by the way. Enter the Fridge. Wu-Tang. So I said Wu-Tang Clan album cover. No, nothing about Enter the 36 Chambers or anything like that. And you'll see it did that. It got that. What's also interesting is it got the Wu-Tang logo more or less right. Like there's a hole there where it should be, but I'm impressed. As someone who's been doing this for a while with Wu-Tang as a reference, never got a logo that good. Never got a logo that good. I actually stopped trying. So I was talking to a fellow parent at daycare, and there was a big Sesame Street thing there, and I thought, hey, what about the style of Sesame Street? And it actually now has the Adventures of Fridge Street. Good fellas, good fridges, right? And it also does the kind of movie poster thing with the actors' names in small print. Typical Quentin Tarantino movie poster. Once Upon a Fridge. I know Quentin's looking for ideas for his next movie, but call me if you want to do one about this. Don't get mad, make memes. And if you can't make memes, make films, make movies. Former coach Joel goes under a different name on Facebook, but so I won't say his Facebook name. I'm assuming he's doing it for privacy reasons. He suggested telenovela, and there it is. Although, I mean, it got the aesthetic. What impresses me, it got the language and it got the design aesthetic of telenovelas, right? Although Love and Cold have do this, but the official title is Love and Amor y Frio, The Forbidden Fridge. So then I thought about classic kung fu movies, Legend of the Fridge Master. So if you were just joining the stream and you were wondering what is gotten into Frank, a so-called friend basically not only took, we sold them two refrigerators for a very cheap price, $500, never paid us, and had basically verbally attacked my wife and insulted her and me and my family, her family in the process, and basically blocked us on Facebook, blocked us on all these platforms. And it was really not the money, but it was the insult to my wife and putting her through emotional duress really kind of set me off on a path. So, and this person stalks Facebook a lot because, see, I don't want to be personal, but so this is another recommendation. I think this came from Bob, longtime listener of the podcast. Or was it? I don't remember exactly who it is, but it might have been him. But the Bridges of Madison County. Fridges of Madison County. Now you'll notice that I didn't give it a lot of hints about what the movie was about, but it did capture, just like the telenovela and the Kung Fu movie, right? It captured a lot of the design aesthetics. My kid is reading some of these, and I was like, well, instead of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Diary of a Wimpy Thief. Got the design aesthetic. Even the typography. Chef's kiss, as they would say. Hong Kong action movie. Again, I don't know what that says in Chinese. I will feed it through a translator later, but pretty accurate. Explosions and don't know about that laser sword though, but the typography in a foreign language. Again, different alphabet and all. Got it right. Bollywood movie. Interesting, but not definitely one of the best. But it did spell fridge right. A medieval tapestry. The Tale of the Fridge and the Dragon. Again, typography and overall gestalt. Design aesthetic, perfect. Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. A little more color than I would expect on a wall, but I didn't. In its defense, I didn't specify that. Don't know enough of hieroglyphs to know if it got that right. But you'll see it did put fridge there. Twisted Sister album cover. Twisted Fridge. Now again, I'm not telling it to do this. I just know it's kind of like the context of the story. Star Trek. Long-term Star Trek fans will kind of nerd out on the notable differences, how it combined all of the eras and TV shows of the uniform into one cohesive whole like this. I find that interesting. Actually works pretty well too. Lord of the Rings, it totally freaked out on that. They would not let me do that. I said Grey's Anatomy, and it says Fridge's Anatomy. Stranger Things. And none of this is, this is really the one that inspired me to do a live stream on this. It got the fonts. It got it right. It got the design aesthetic really good. And even though the voice to text didn't really quite space it right or say it right. Call of Duty. So it did kind of start messing up on this. But if you look at the Welcome to Las Vegas sign, it got that right. It got the design aesthetic of the Cadillac and Hunter Thompson, the Acapulco shirt on our Fridge Thief, 90s sitcom, Fridge and the Family, 80s hairband, Fridge Rockers, Insane Clown Posse, which this was the post for this one was fridge magnets. How do they work? Kiss. It didn't want to do. So I was like, okay, that was actually elsewhere in another prompt. Well, describe their famous rock band 70s that wore black and white face paint. Fridge Dynasty. Now in the style of the Village People, Fridge People. 70s film. Not all of them are winners. But really the key here is I'm impressed. I've accidentally stumbled across a test or done this test of how good DALL-E 3 is at generating text. I think that they've really done a lot of tuning on this. You'll see that it done much better. I'm also impressed with how it gets the context, the design aesthetic, the language in some cases, and obviously the typography. And I'm going to continue this until I either get an apology or my money, although it's dragged on so long, I'm probably going to wait till I get my money. But it is interesting how many people have responded to this and have suggested things. Let me know in the comments if you think what next Fridge Beam you want to see, and you have a great day. I'm going to play the outro graphic.